All right, it being 6:30, and I believe we have a quorum present in person and online, so we will begin tonight's meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. If we could begin with a attendance roll call.
Chairman Bakey.
Here.
Member Baez-Rose.
Here.
Member Butenhuis. Here. Member Shea.
Present.
Member DeJesus.
Here.
The other's not here.
Member Gallivan. Member DePeza. Member Rourke.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Our first order of business this evening is the approval of the minutes from the September 21st meeting. Do we have a motion on the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All right, so the primary business we have this evening is, as part of our annual process, we have a night where we are able to hear from the applicants who have submitted applications for funding this year, and a chance for the board members to ask questions of those applicants to clarify any parts of the applications that are unclear to us. We will be doing that this evening and likely over at our next meeting as well. We will not be rendering decisions on the applications this evening. We go through these essentially hearings for all of the applications, and then the board will meet to deliberate on the full package of applicants for this year, likely at our January meeting. So these are all public meetings, and we certainly encourage folks to come back and join us in the middle of winter as well as in this beautiful November day. So our first application this evening is from Mass Mills 4. An application has been submitted by Mullins Management Company seeking $1.5 million of CPA funds for a community housing and historic preservation project. The applicant seeks to rehab the historic mill building in the Massachusetts Mills complex and convert the property to contain 82 affordable units. Do we have somebody representing? Feel free to step up to the microphone and just give us a couple minutes of presentation.
Alrighty. Can you hear me all right? Oh,
We can. If you could also
Okay.
just state your name and introduce yourself as well.
sorry about that. Hi, my name's John Clark. I'm representing Mullins Management Co., and I'm here to speak about the Mass Mills 4 project. Mass Mills 4 is hopefully the redevelopment of the two remaining buildings within the Massachusetts Mills complex. It'd be a total of 82 100% affordable units. There are two buildings functionally related with a conjoining wall in the middle. There's a 5-story building called the Boiler Building and a 3-story building called the Main Power Building. And in 2021, Mullins finished acquiring the rights to the project, which enabled us to start this process and start the redevelopment. This development had been planned when the Mass Mills 3 building, or otherwise known as the Picker building, was redeveloped, and I believe that finished in 2017. And part of that building was actually demolished to make egress for this development. So this development has been planned for quite a while, And I know, us at Mullins, we are very excited to start the process. And, the way we've looked at this, we've looked at it a bunch of different ways. And we do intend to have this be a tax credit deal, also a historic deal. And it would be 100% affordable. And I think we would address multiple tiers of AMI from 30 to 50 and kind of optimize the project that way. Massachusetts Mills is a mixed-use development currently. There are market rate and affordable units within the complex, so this would add more affordable units, but overall it's a very nice mix of market rate and affordable in the entirety of the project. We're asking $1.5 million to help with the construction of this. We are planning to use those funds for direct construction. It's a very expensive project just with the tight site logistics, the historic nature, and then kind of the current condition of the buildings. We do believe that this would provide a great community benefit with the new Riverwalk that's gone place on the sewer interceptor, and actually it cantilevers over our project right there. We see an immediate need in addressing the facade, which we've kind of addressed in a short to medium term way. We would really like to find a permanent solution. And we believe that, the cost of those repairs, the permanent solution should be the redevelopment. So we would like to, put our best foot forward and, do everything we can to redevelop this project. Are there any questions that I could answer or elaborate on?
Thank you. We have questions from any of the board members?
I do. Can you just speak to what the project schedule is that you anticipate for this redevelopment?
Yeah. So our base case, which is what I provided in the application, this would be mass housing financing. We would intend to submit next year. So there isn't necessarily a hard date for that submission. I think where we've been looking at it, the anticipated soft sources from former DHCD, that is typically in the fall, but they really liked everything else lined up before that. So if that occurs in the fall with a potential award, which would be kind of early 2025, that would allow us to then, essentially have everything together. This would be a mid 2026 close, because it does take 9 to 12 months to close and line everything up. And then we're anticipating really 18 to 24 months for construction. So that is where the end of December 2027 for a delivery date came into play.
Can I just follow up on that? What do you anticipate is sort of the duration of your construction, and sort of how many fiscal years will your spend likely cover?
When does your fiscal year start? In July?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We won't hold you to it.
Yeah, I think we're in the 3 to 4 range with what I've just laid out, because it would be 24, 25, 26. Or 25, 26, 27, I guess. And I think where we've anticipated, issues with that timeline is just, we are applying for the state historic. And so, we're really pushing to get as much momentum as possible. And, this is one of our, first kind of soft sources meetings that we're having. So we are intending to apply for home, and we're also going to utilize one of the TIF programs in the city as well. So we're really looking to take advantage of every public source that's available for us, in addition to the more classic, statewide soft sources.
Any other questions from board members? All right. Thank you very much.
All right. I did have one question, actually. The one of the conditions was just on the restriction for the affordable, and I was just curious if that was in addition to anything that would be required for the kind of low-income housing tax credit restrictions.
What we've done in the past is to make them concurrent.
Okay.
And we've actually had a couple of projects where we've had to work very closely with the applicants to coordinate so that the requirements of the deed restrictions are not in conflict with one another. And so
Okay.
we would anticipate doing that as we move forward in the future for sort of everyone here who may be thinking about an affordable housing project.
Okay, great. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next agenda item, I believe, it's 150 Middlesex Street, and I believe they requested a continuance. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So then our next one will be the Powers House Revitalization Project. An application has been submitted by Thomas G. Underwood seeking $240,333 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant is seeking to rehab the historic Powers House.
Hi, I'm Thomas Underwood. I have with me Sarah Zemetrius as well. She's been helping me with this project. So I'm a Lowell firefighter and the owner of the property in question. I'm here to discuss the Peter Powers Double House, located at 2628 Lawrence Street, constructed in 1835. It's first listed on the Historic Registry in 1978, and it's been in the Lowell Historic District the entire time. This building has been preserved for its architectural historical significance, specifically the street-facing entrance, emphasis by a handsome portico supported by fluted Doric columns, and the windows that have wood trim surrounds with corner blocks and 6x6 sash over 2x2 windows. Preservation restriction was placed on this property for the public benefit because maintaining the 19th century appearance of this building maintains the historic character of the overlapping districts it is located in. This is a vital component to the continued success of the downtown historic district and cultural districts. The city and state recognized this building when they teamed up back in 2000 to stabilize the exterior by restoring it to its original appearance by removing asbestos siding, trim, window surrounds with wood in the hopes of selling it to someone willing to maintain its historic appearance. It took 8 years before the city found a buyer to take on both properties containing with the building while it sat empty. Those owners invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in rebuilding the interior, which had to be completely gutted due to a fire in 1990s, and the de-leading of one side of the building. But the exterior was already suffering extreme damage on the south side, and all the repairs and maintenance the previous owners attempted to do did not stop its spread. I purchased the north side of the building in 2018, 26 Lawrence side of the property, just after I joined the Lowell Fire Department. As a firefighter, I wanted to live as close to my district as possible, and two, because I wanted to live downtown and experience all the benefits being a resident of Lowell has. As I also remember how all that started changing with, sorry. Yep. I also remember how all that started changing when the city had all of its residents work together on urban renewals. I believe Lowell's going, sorry, I lost my place.
It's okay.
I never intended to be a landlord when I first bought the north side of the building. But after 3 years of trying to coordinate with the previous owner, an exterior maintenance, and an interconnected plumbing system, I decided to return the building to a single owner who would better facilitate the upkeep and repair of the property as a whole, especially given the restrictions on the property. After the former tenants vacated the property in July of 2022, I was able to take possession of the full building and start this revitalization project. Aside from the initial investment to purchase the entire building, I put over $20,000 of my own money into this project, and have another estimated $50,000 of repairs that I'm going to be covering as well. But this building has an interconnected series of problems that need to be dealt with all at once, or both properties will suffer. To start with, the historic wood gutters on the house are failing. The worst being the south side gutters, which the previous owner said had a 6-foot rotting gap when they purchased it back in 2008, which has been patched and repaired for years. Previous owners even tried replacing the rotting 6-foot section with reclaimed wood gutters, but they are still leaking water and rotting off the building. In the variety of pictures in my packet, you can see that these gutters have been patched, they have been wood-filled, and they've been failing this entire time. The wood siding on the building is deteriorating because of the water from these gutters flowing against the building and flowing behind these sidings. Some of the siding has fallen off the building, and from that, I discovered that this building was never weather-wrapped when it was re-sided back in 2000. So that has been 23 years of neglect of water flowing onto this house, onto the wood frame, and damaging it. The windows show clear signs of wood rot. This is a single piece of my house that has fallen off from a patch to try to maintain it. These windows are single pane glass wood, and while it may be keeping with historic accuracy, it is not recommended even by the New England Historic Preservation Society for private residences. Aside from energy loss, single pane windows are not safe for a home with children as they are easily broken and not tempered. A kid could easily jump up on a bed, hit the windows, and go out. These windows on the 28 Lawrence Street side are also covered in lead paint. I'm asking for funds for de-leading so that this house can be a place safe for families to live in. This is what this project is about for me. Yes, it's to revitalize the presence of a historic building that I love and is my home, but also as a house can be used for families again. Hopefully a family from the neighborhood in need of a place this unit can offer. Unfortunately, the historic restrictions increase the cost of this project by 2 to 5 times the cost of a normal home remodel. With CPA funding, I can restore and preserve this historic building and open a rental unit to community housing, keeping the cost of the rent on the 28 Lawrence side comparable to something from the Section 8 guidelines for a house of this size. Now, I say that some of the committee asked, so in the comments I received, they asked about these restrictions and whether or not this was maintenance compared to a rehab. I've owned this building for 2 years on one side and 5 years on the other. These problems are not things that need to be replaced every 2 to 5 years. The siding is falling off, the gutters are rotting, and many of these windows are deteriorated to the point that they must be replaced. These are long-standing problems that go back decades that must be fixed now to protect this building. They are interconnected problems that, when fixed together, saves time, money, and ultimately the building's very structure. The materials we're going with are modern substitute materials chosen for this project for their very historic look. We're asking for Everlast siding because it has a natural wood grain finish and unmatched longevity with the color embedded into to never need painting. These materials have been approved in historic districts in the cities all over Massachusetts and New England for its ability to maintain historic appearance of homes and character of historic districts. I included in my packet Salem's Historic Seaport District's information, and that they have approved these materials as well, and a Canton as example from my contractor. This would protect the frame of the building and preserve it for future generations. I'm proposing the windows to be replaced with modern, energy-efficient windows and reframed to keep the original look of the corner blocks of the surrounds mentioned in the historic inventory. The gutters would be modern PVC gutters that are chosen for their wood-like appearance, which would be undetectable from street level, but would protect the wood frame from water for the life of the product, without the need of yearly oiling and threat of wood rot. None of these modern substitute materials are the cheap option, but maintaining historic appearance of this building for the public benefit as required is paramount. I know the board is worried about the restrictions already on the house and proposed changes, but subtle updates using modern substitute materials that don't impact historical consistency are an acceptable compromise for conservation and preservation. To quote directly from the restrictions that are already on my house, the intent of the preservation restrictions is to enable the Commission to review proposed alterations, assess their impact on the integrity of the structure, not to preclude future change. The Mass Historic Commission staff will attempt to work with property owners to develop mutually satisfactory solutions which are in the best interest of the property. This plan will revitalize the building while maintaining its historic appearance and make the continued preservation efforts easier and cost-effective going forward for Lowell families decades to come.
Thank you.
Sorry for the stumbles.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I just have a question about de-leading, and maybe this is a question for somebody else on the board or Dylan, just whether or not de-leading work is actually eligible for CPI.
I would assume it's not, but I would have to confirm that.
Okay.
I was going to raise a similar question because it seemed like a fair amount of your scope is sort of in a gray area in terms of whether it would be what the Community Preservation Act considers to be eligible historic preservation work. I think almost everything you're asking for could be considered part of an affordable housing rehab if you were to agree to the affordable housing restrictions
I'm absolutely willing to
on
do
the
that.
rental unit and consider this an affordable housing project as opposed to a historic preservation project. But some of this scope is definitely not proper, not definitely, but likely not eligible as a historic preservation project.
Okay.
So you'll have to evaluate, and what I guess I'd encourage you to do is contact Dylan or someone else from the staff and let them know if you'd like to change your application, recognizing that if it is a affordable housing project, that does carry a different kind of deed restriction on the income levels of the tenants that you would need to rent to.
I'd be totally willing to talk about that because a big portion of this is with the CPA funds to help keep costs down. It allow me to actually keep the price of the rent in accordance with those very same guidelines because I want a family there, and I know the neighborhood I live in, and I know the actual families who want to live in that neighborhood, and I'm more than willing. And like I said, I looked at the Section 8 guidelines for the pricing of a 5-bedroom home, and I'm like, that's completely fine and acceptable. So I'd be more than happy to do those things.
Okay, great. I have a couple other questions, though, for you. You've described that the request to us is $240,333, very precise number. And you've also noted no other sources. So is this project only possible if the Community Preservation Committee recommends funding the entire project?
Not the entire project. There are certain things that are very necessary, and I didn't know, because this is all very new to me, I didn't know what I could ask for and what I couldn't, so I just asked for everything. Just like you just said, a lot of it is in gray areas and other things like that, so a lot of this has been a very big learning experience for me. But without the CPA funding, a lot of these costs become going to push the community housing part out of the pricing. That's why I have my own money that I've put in. I said I've already put in $20,000, and I'm ready to put in even more. Like an example is with the de-letting project side of it, I'm only asking for the de-letting related to the windows. I was already planning to put my own money in for the de-letting of the interior at the same time as the de-letting of the exterior. And the de-letting of the windows is part of the window remodel and repair, so that's why I asked for the money related to that, because the de-letters I've spoken to, they won't do half the project. They have to do all of it. And
You can't
so,
get certification with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So many aspects of this. So like the wood gutters is a part that I believe is actually doing a lot of damage to the house and is one of the most necessary things to be done to preserve the house. The de-letting of the windows helps with making the home safe for families, because with the lead law, no children under the age of 6 can live in that house. And this is a 5-bedroom home. That's a house for children. And bringing up Section 8 again, you can't have Section 8 families in there without a lead certificate. So even if, without doing the de-letting, it can't become a Section 8 house if we want to do that. So all of these that's why I kept bringing up, these are all interconnected problems. And that's why I listed them all.
I'd encourage you to think about other, or research other options for some of this as well. I believe the city has a program for de-letting.
They do.
Specifically, so
It
you
is-
might want to explore that. The other
I have
thing,
looked into that.
Okay.
And they offer $40,000, and the initial inspections that I got with the historical restrictions, they were asking for about $100,000 to do the de-letting of the property. Unless I can switch out the windows for more modern windows. And these are also the expensive windows, because like the cheapest vinyl windows are like $10,000. And in my packet, I'm asking for $60,000 to meet the wood window requirements. They won't still be like single glass deglazing, because these would be modern, energy efficient windows that I'm trying to work with everyone.
the other question I have for you, you described a likelihood that the damage to the gutters is actually causing probably unseen damage to the building itself. But your budget, or the items you described that you're planning to work on, are basically the sort of exterior, the exterior finish of the building, the siding, the windows, things of that nature. You don't seem to have anything in here for sheathing or structure that may also have issues.
So-
Is that something you're just planning to address with other funding, or?
Yes.
Or are you
So,
hoping
eh,
that you're not going to find anything?
Well, no, I suspect there is damage behind that siding, but I can't find it out without removing the siding. And I was already planning to get a line of credit or anything up for my own money to deal with any of those structural problems in that scenario. Because in that position, you guys, if the CPA funding actually comes through, you are carrying a lot of the weight yourself. I was more than willing to carry the rest.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from other board members? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next project this evening is, I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm sure, Project Vlahos. An application has been submitted by 199 Market Street LLC, seeking $265,000 of CPA funds for a historic preservation project. The applicant is seeking to rehab the historic property at 199 to 201 Market Street and convert the property to a mixed-use property.
Hi. Greg Lamar Anderson, also here, Scott Anderson, my partner in this endeavor. So the lengthy packet there has a lot of the information that I think a lot of the details about the project. What I wanted to give you is a little bit more of what we are expecting to deliver, the actual outcome that we really hope to achieve. I put together a couple of slides. I'm not sure if you have those available to you, Dylan. My day job is a product manager, and I can't speak without slides. Fantastic, thanks. So, yeah, the project came about, Project Voss, from a bookstore that my wife and I happened to open up a couple years ago, right there on Market Street, and thrilled with the community outreach and the support that we had from everyone, and excited about the prospects of being on Market Street, which almost always leads to more. Okay, what's the next thing we can do? What else can we achieve? And we looked to see that there's a house, there's a building that was 2 doors down that left a lot to be desired, had been ignored for way too long. And I'm a big fan of tilting at windmills, and so I thought, why not? And my brother-in-law, unfortunately, is just as crazy as I am. But if you see there on this slide here, the summary of the project is that it is community-supported, shovel-ready. It will expand the historic corridor that we have there on Market Street. It's going to activate a building that has been sorely ignored for decades, and add two new places for people to come down to live in Lowell and to shop, and a great bookstore that's 2 doors away, and also a retail space, because what we also need in Lowell is more retail. There's got to be reasons for people to come down here, and more than just one, several. So that's one of our biggest goals, is to bring more people downtown, to bring more retail downtown. On the next slide, you'll see where we started from. So the Voss building, built in the 1930s, starts off in that same way, where you had that beautiful little first floor retail. The big glass windows, and here I think it was a flower shop at that point. But that's really what we're trying to get back to as soon as we can. What you see there on the right is where we are right now. Someone in the 70s thought it would be a really good idea to take beautiful brick and cover it with ugly brick. And that's what we've had now since then. So if you go to the next slide, you're going to see what our dream is. So that is, thank you, ChatGPT, and all the generations of Gen AI, to come up with what we believe will be the place that we'll deliver in 2024. That will be the new home for two folks, two families on the second floor, and on the first floor, Pizzelli's Bakery. So we already have a lease signed, a lease signed with Pizzelli's. They are ready, willing, and able, and would love it if we were done yet tomorrow. But for right now, they're in building number 5, with the intent that as soon as we are active, that they will be moving in there. Never mind shovel ready. We're ready. We're ready for renters too. So, just as we go to the next slide, we see what I mean by the historic corridor. If you're kind of starting right from there and you're looking up, you see, the Lowell Manufacturing building there on the left, where the National Park is located. You see in Gallery Z, you see the Air building. This is This is what we want people to come to. This is why they come to Lowell, is for this, these beautiful buildings. The historic district is all downtown. We want to finish that play. We want to add in this one more building to get one more step in that corridor. If I go to that next slide, it is community supported. I like it. I'm in the community, but all the neighbors too. So we have Warp and Weft, we have the Athenian Corner, we have the law office on Middle and on Middle Street. We have the Downtown Neighborhood Association Board is fully endorsing this, as is the board chair, Jack Moynihan. The LDFC is an investor in this, and also Allison in the packet has written a letter of support for this. Vanna Howard too has a letter of support. So this is thoroughly vetted and seen by many as a significant and important investment into the downtown area. So what's our timeline? We started, we've already done some of the work to date. We have done the interior demolition and asbestos removal. So it is in a ready position. We have architectural and engineering plans done. We have a contractor all lined up to start. He is in the midst of doing permitting right now. Our first thing is going to be that roof. We have some damage from that right now. We want to get that done as soon as we can. And from there, we're going to go out with all the other work. So depending on how we can line up the funding, we were really looking to get this done by summer of 2024. The next slide, Dylan, I'm going to bring you to work. You're doing a great job. Is the money. We have a number of fantastic partners that have already been working with us, from Enterprise Bank, from LDFC. We are working with a Heritage company for historic tax credits for the federal. We're past phase 1 of that, right? And from there, we'll also reach out for state credit as well. We've put a significant amount into this, and we are expecting to probably do a bit more, but we're really looking for CPA funds to help with that. On the right, we see kind of that breakdown of the work, but at a high level, it is the facade, it is the brickwork, it is the roof. Protecting the historic investment and restoring that brick to the beauty that it was in the 30s. Looking at that numbers, I think, wow, that's kind of crazy. A lot of big numbers, and I've never pretended to be a great business person. What I am is a Lowell guy. Wow, getting choked up. So I'm a Lowell guy. I want this. I want this for my city. So we'll make it work. And the last slide is just a thank you. Thanks for your time.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Do we have any questions from any of the board members on this one?
No.
No? I just have one related to your schedule. So you just indicated that you're hoping to have it complete by the summer of '24. Just so you understand, and maybe you already do, our process, we make recommendations. The city council ultimately appropriates the funds. And in the past couple of years, our recommendations have been submitted to the city council sort of early to midwinter. And the city council will go through a deliberative process that sometimes takes another couple of months. So the actual decisions may not be made until getting pretty close to when you would like to be done with your project.
Right.
So I guess my question, I noticed you checked that you are not able to accept multi-year funding. Do you, in the event that the committee and then the city council want to fund your project, but the timing may not be getting the money into your project when you need it, do you have plans for construction financing or other financing that you could carry for a period until such time as it was maybe taken out by a grant later on? Or is that not
Yeah,
going to be
we-
possible?
So yes, it's probably going to be more likely an additional investment from us towards that, and trying to balance, getting the work done as soon as possible with also the different supports, financial supports that we have. So I think the roof is something that we really can't wait too much longer on. Some of the other stuff is a little bit, we can slide it along. Then it gets a little bit tricky, again, with our construction firm, Whitmore Construction. But they have been great and a fantastic partner as we've gone, quarter after quarter, kind of pushing this out a little bit.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can, the expectation is to do temporary repairs to the roof to at least stop the water flowing, so that a lot of the interior work can be done while waiting for additional funding to do the facade and everything. So, yeah, the timeline is based on the hope of getting funding from you guys, but if we have to push it back further and push that timeline, in the multi-year, did I hear that your fiscal year is July?
Yes.
So you just mean going in past July on that?
No, the question we ask in the application is whether you're willing to accept an award that actually is over multiple fiscal years. So some projects, like the first one you heard this evening, is going to be a long-duration project. They checked yes. In the event that the committee wanted to fund that project, they could say, instead of funding it all this year, they would allocate some money of this year's and then some
Right.
money of next year's and so forth. That's what that question is asking.
Gotcha.
Is no still the right answer for you, or is?
So it's still, if if fiscal year 25 starts in July, and I think it's no-ish in that, really trying to get it going sooner
Okay.
than later. It can be, the further we go, it's a little bit more of a burden.
Okay.
We could accept in July, but not next July.
Okay. All right. Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Could I just ask a question? Thank you for your presentation. Could you just walk me through the information I have in front of me a little bit with respect to your source of funding?
Sure.
Could you just help me understand a little bit about what funding you have already secured and what funding you'll be looking to get? I'm just curious as to that answer.
Sure. So we'll probably do a tag team here. The first was...
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Absolutely, I'm sorry about that.
Thank
The first was an enterprise loan, work with Enterprise Bank, and that's a loan of about $640,000, which was both...
Well, let me go to your page. The first item, you said Enterprise Bank.
Right,
Is that been committed?
yes. We have, that loan is, we have that loan, correct.
Well, it's committed, so it's both for the partial building purchase and the construction loan. So they're, between Enterprise and LDFC, they're into it for 310 out of the 740 that is fully committed for
Okay, so
the construction.
in the low development, the LDFC, that's been committed?
Yes,
And in other words, you're going to build, incidentally, let me preface my remarks by telling you that, and I think the chairman knows this, I can't bang a nail into a piece of wood, so, I could probably read a balance sheet, but I can't. But it's like, I grew up in the Acres, so I know that property pretty well. I grew up there 70 years ago, for that matter. But the bottom line is that your plan is quite ambitious. And I'm saying to myself, well, it really isn't important what I think. I was just kind of curious as to, because I know in the past 3 years, I know the chairman in this board has asked developers about their financing. Have they applied for financing? Have they got the financing?
Sure.
Because apparently in the past, if my memory serves me correct, we like to support projects that are feasible and going to get started. And I just thought that when I saw the figure 1.9 million for your project, I went, you know,
That's right. It's not small.
It's probably, obviously, you know what you're doing. It's just, to me,
It's not a small number, and really that's why we're looking for grants and from
But
Heritage
if
Credit.
the Enterprise Bank is saying okay, and the people that run the low development, I mean, that speaks volumes for me. And I hate to tell you what was on the second floor of that building 40 years ago. You know, that's where they used to have card games. But anyhow, no, I just want to wish you the best of luck and everything. I just wanted to get a little idea of
I appreciate
your
that.
plan.
We're gonna get it back to playing cards on the
Yeah,
second
it's
floor.
really an ambitious one, and I want to just wish you the best, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. All right, our next item this evening is the Transfiguration Tower Restoration Project. An application has been submitted by the Transfiguration Greek Orthodox Church seeking $400,000 for a historic preservation project. The applicant is seeking to rehab the existing towers at the church. Is there anybody here to speak on this project?
Yes, can you hear me, Mr. Chair? I'm on Zoom.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Philip Iliopoulos, and I'm on the parish council for the Transfiguration Greek Orthodox Church. I want to apologize, Father Greg, our priest, was hoping to be here for the meeting, but he had a retreat with the bishop and some of the other clergy, so he's out of town this week, unfortunately. But I thought I'd give you just a quick background about the church and the project, and then be available to answer any questions you might have, if that's okay. So just a little history about the church. The church actually was started in that location in 1924, had their first service in the church on Palm Sunday, right before Easter. And in about the 50s, they decided to expand the church and build a second floor and bring the church upstairs and use the downstairs for a sort of a function hall for the church festivities. And that project was completed in the 50s, and that's the sort of main church you see today with the two towers above them. And then in about 2002, the church built, I want to say, about a $2.5 million addition, classrooms for Sunday school, some offices, a small chapel, and some additional meeting rooms. And that project was completed, like I said, probably in the mid-2000s. Over the last couple of years, we've had some water leaking in the main church area that was, like I said, completed in the 50s, and tried to get companies to look at it, contractors to look at it. No one could really identify it, so we finally hired a building envelope company. Company by the name of BET, and they came out in the spring and spent 3 days on lifts investigating the exterior of the church, and found several areas that needed to be addressed that was causing the water to leak in the church. Obviously, we're here to talk about the towers, but just as a little background, there was also some repairs to the roof that are needed, some gutter work, some exterior masonry work on the main building. So the total project is a little over 1.5 million for some of those ancillary pieces, but the towers represent the lion's share of the problems that the church has. That's where most of the water is leaking in, and that represents about a $1.2 million repair replacement. And so what we kind of wanted to focus on with the application is just the towers, and we'll sort of address some of the other issues separately, through our efforts. So, that's kind of the project in a nutshell. We've been working with a company that does tower renovations. Believe it or not, one of their specialties, one of their main areas of experience is dealing with towers, and they're a company called Consigli Construction. They recently completed a tower renovation project at a church in Worcester, and they've come on board. They've got their architects on board as well, and so we're kind of at the stage now of trying to figure out if we can afford to do this. The cost to repair and replace the towers, one can be repaired, one looks like it's going to need to be replaced, as I mentioned, is 1.2. Believe it or not, the cost to take them down is $500,000 to $600,000. So kind of an odd situation. It would cost almost as much to take them down as to restore them. I put in the packet some of the things that the City of Lowell's meant to us, that we've meant to the city. We've been a proud member of the city for 100 years, that we're going to be celebrating our 100th anniversary this coming Palm Sunday in the spring. And, we held monthly or yearly, I should say, festivals with the community. We're part of the City of Lowell's Open Door program, because we have the interior of our church is adorned with mosaics from ceiling to floor, and they say it's one of the largest mosaic presentations in North America. The church itself has been called the Little Marco Church of Venice, because it really emulates that mosaic look to it. So we think we've got a very historic structure, a historic church that is part of the City of Lowell, important to the city. We're asking for 400, even though the project's 1.2. I kind of, we sort of are willing to kind of put our own skin in the game and raise most of the money ourselves, but 1.2 is a lot, so we could really use some help, and we thought maybe this would be a good opportunity to try to apply for some grant money. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have questions from any of the board members? The only question I have for you is whether you have a good understanding of the historic preservation restriction that would go on the property. We have run into some issues in the past where the CPA funds were targeted to a particular part of a building, and the owner wasn't aware that the restriction might apply to the entirety of the building. And I just want to make sure you are aware of that. In the event that this project is funded, it would carry a preservation restriction on the entirety of the building, not just the part that was worked on with this money. Is that something you're at least aware of and comfortable with?
Yeah, so I've got one. I actually own a building in Chelmsford that's a couple 100 years old that has a recorded historic preservation on it. And I'm assuming it would work the same way, that the exterior of the building would have to be preserved, maintained, and that, if you were going to change anything on the exterior, you'd probably need to get it approved before you could do anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell. Yep.
Yeah. So we talked about it, and we understand that would be part of it. We want to save the towers. We want to preserve the look of the church. Obviously, this money can't be used for any religious component, and that's why I've just sort of looked at the exterior and those towers. But obviously, it's a church that's been in our families for generations and will be in our families for generations to come. So the thought of having to take down those towers to save the cost of the project and to make it feasible is something that none of us want to see. So we're fine with the preservation, because that's kind of what we want to do, to preserve it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if we get some additional information, is that something the board would want us to provide, or does the city council sort of seek any additional information? How's the process work from here?
Sure, I can't speak to what the city council will or won't want, but the process from here is that we will be hearing from all of the applications. Most of them are this evening. We will have at least one probably next month. And then usually in our January meeting, we begin deliberations about what this committee will then recommend of how to allocate the funds. That recommendation gets submitted to the city council. The city council then may use whatever process they wish, but they have typically referred this to the CPA recommendations to a subcommittee, held a subcommittee hearing where you'll probably have to make a similar presentation to what you made to us if you're in that recommendation list. And then the city council makes a decision whether to actually appropriate the funds or not. They do not have the authority to recommend funding for something or to award funds to something that this committee didn't recommend, but they do have the authority to not appropriate the funds that this committee does recommend. So, or obviously they can concur with the recommendations and appropriate the funds. That process will likely take place late winter, possibly early spring, depending on competing items on the city council's agendas.
Sure. Okay, and the reason I asked too is we do have sort of ongoing work by Consigli and the engineer, so if we get any fine tuning of any of the information, is it something that I could supply the committee that they could take into consideration out there as they study the applicants?
Yeah, we actually always appreciate if there is additional information that would help our process. We welcome your submitting that to the staff.
Okay.
Again, I can't speak for what the city council does or does not wish to receive.
Okay, all right, well, I'll plan on submitting any additional information to you and this committee if it becomes available.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your efforts tonight.
All right, the next one we have on the agenda this evening is Suffolk Place. An application has been submitted by Acre Crossing LLC seeking $850,000 for a community housing and open space project. The applicant is seeking to construct affordable housing and open space, including a pocket park and walkway along the canal.
Let's see, Steve Jonkus representing the developers from Acre Crossing, Will Susi and Don Garcia. Francie Slater was going to join us by Zoom. I'm not sure if she's on or not. Yeah.
I am here, just having some technical moments. Good
So
evening, everybody.
we thought we'd start off by just giving you a quick update because of your past support of Acre Crossing itself and the progress that we're making with completing that project. And your support, of course, meant a great deal from the standpoint of the project's feasibility, but also convincing Mass Housing that the community is in support of affordable housing for first-time home buyers. And that financial commitment was a real example of that. Francie, I think you have photos of the ongoing development on the residential piece.
Yes.
Could you share those?
Yeah.
The projected construction completion date is April of 2024. We're in the process now of working with Mass Housing to determine what the actual purchase prices will be. They require us to set the purchase prices 6 months before completion in order to conduct the lottery process and go through the certifying the eligibility of those applicants and the selection of those applicants as well. You can see some of the photos. There's a shot there now of the residential piece, primarily with the John Dock Credit Union office building off to the left, and the residential project, as you can see, sits on the corner of Merrimack going up Cabot Street towards Market Street. That's a picture of the rear of the building, and you can see the deck, the upper deck for the parking facility. You'll recall that the grade difference between Market and Merrimack Street allowed us to excavate in order to create a lower deck and set the foundations for the buildings themselves. And that parking on the lower deck would be made available to the credit union for their 30,000 square foot office that will be on Merrimack Street, and that entrance will be, and exit will be on Merrimack Street. The upper deck would be accessed from Market Street. And that's what you see being constructed now. These are some shots of the interior of the units. Sorry that they're a little bit cluttered, but obviously construction is ongoing. And workmen often leave boxes in the middle of the windows so that taking away from the aesthetics of what those windows would actually look like in person. But you know, the cabinets are being installed. Once that's done, the flooring will be installed as well. And again, the project completion date is expected for April of '24. It's not to say that we haven't had our challenges from the standpoint of interest rates increasing. When they first began development, their construction loan was at 5% interest, and given what's been happening with the Federal Reserve Bank and increases in rates, most recently they've been at 9 1/8, which makes a significant difference in their interest costs, and basically affects the bottom line. I think Francie, you have a photo of the existing building at 408 Suffolk Street. You've seen these before. I know that many of you are quite familiar with that corner of Suffolk and Market. It's a very prominent corner. Market Street, as you know, is well-traveled. I know that our application mentioned something about, mentioned the possibility of closing a portion of Suffolk Street in order to create more open space along the Western Canal. Our thinking is that that project could be undertaken if the city desires, if your traffic studies and all indicate that that would make some sense as a neighborhood beautification. We think that 408 Suffolk Street or Suffolk Place would present an opportunity for you to apply for the city to apply for MassWorks funding, as they did with Acre Crossing, where the city received $1.7 million to do public improvements. And our thinking is that from our perspective, and hopefully from yours, bringing the park in as part of an overall infrastructure improvement that would allow you to extend your sidewalk improvements and landscaping that's proposed for those sidewalks areas that abut Acre Crossing would make your application for MassWorks a little bit stronger. And frankly, it would allow us to apply the whole $850,000 that we're requesting towards the actual cost of the project. Our schedule for Suffolk Place is a little bit ambitious. I work with developers who are both private and those who develop affordable housing, and on the affordable housing side, understand that the process for securing funds and closing on financing can be somewhat lengthy. And private developers, I think, have the ability to beat the drum and reach have expectations about exactly when they can close. But you know, essentially, we'd be looking at a 12-month period for design, going from schematic to full construction drawings, and then the construction permitting side. And a construction start would be probably a 6-month process, and the construction schedule would be 14 months, which would bring us to sometime in 2025, which goes to our application indicating that we could look at splitting the $850,000 request over that time frame. The project itself would be 33 units with 7,500 square feet of retail space, commercial space on the first floor. The units would consist of 3 two-bedroom units, and the balance would be all one-bedroom units. The ones would be something like 675 square feet in size, and the twos would be approximately 1,000 square feet. The financing would come from a construction loan from a conventional lender, and like we did with Acre Crossing, we would continue working with Mass Housing and their Commonwealth Builder Program that can provide up to $250,000 per unit for units that are priced at 100% of area median income or below. Our goal here would be, again, because of construction costs, ongoing supply chain issues that really are difficult, and what we've seen in increases in interest rates, we would be looking to price these at 100% of AMI, with the hope that others at a lower income percentage would be able to qualify because of additional support that they might get from state and local programs. The total construction budget at this point is $16.6 million. So, you know, your $850,000 would leverage a considerable amount of state funding and private investment. The other point is that given all of the risks that are involved in this, Mass Housing has also made some changes in their approach to these projects. Initially, with Acre Crossing, for example, they were providing the funding upon completion, and they've since decided that, understanding that the need to keep costs down, and they would advance the funding up front so that keeping your construction loan amount lower than it would be otherwise, and thus resulting in considerable savings on interest payments. They also are added the opportunity to provide funding up front beyond the $250,000 to deal with things like site preparation. And, you know, if as you probably can't see this from there, and it's not up on the screen, but the existing buildings are, I'll go back to the 1920s. And at one point, we talked about card playing for another project. I think there was a bookmaking shop in here once upon a time. But the idea would be to demolish the Pratha super convenience store, as well as the former Kantakis's and the barber shop and vacant building on Market Street. And that would, that site would be totally taken up by the project itself. Parking would take place at the facility that is part of Acre Crossing. So we think that that would be a reasonable approach from a marketing standpoint. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions from any of the board members?
Thank you for your presentation. As you know, I grew up as a boy right down the street, 100 yards away, and so I've seen that area come and go, and luckily it's going to go back to what it used to be. My question is, though, Steve, congratulations and everything. That building number 1 is terrific. But my question with respect to your application of mass housing, how confident are you there of achieving your goals for, over $8 million? What's your thought process there?
So we've obviously have maintained the relationship that we've developed with them over the first phase, and we've been in conversation with them and brought them along on this project every step of the way, and thus far they've been pretty supportive. From the standpoint of use of CPA funds, none of that would be used until we get all of the financing commitments in place, that both from the state and from the construction lender.
Yeah, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you, that's all. But,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know, have a good idea what's going to go there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just have two questions. One related to the open space. So if the group is thinking that the open space thing could be a better fit with like a MassWorks program, I think the application itself, when it came in, said that it was looking for both housing and open space to be kind of under those brackets. So are you kind of amending that and saying, like, let's just focus on the housing kind of pool?
Yes, we are, and the reason for that, again, is that there's just no telling where we're going to be next year with interest rates and materials costs and labor.
And then just a question about the existing businesses. And I know you mentioned that there was going to be 7,000 square feet of commercial space in the new building. So have there been conversations about what that's going to be? Is it going to be essentially building out some new space for the folks whose buildings are coming down, or is it going to be a whole new situation?
The convenience store folks aren't interested in coming back. It could be a location for a different kind of food vendor or a convenience store. The barber shop is relocating, and it's to an agreement with its current landlord, and the other buildings are vacant. So our thinking is that, and this is part of what's happening with the transformative development initiative that the city is undertaking in partnership with Mass Development for that section of the Acre neighborhood. Many of the businesses that they've interviewed have indicated an interest in ownership as opposed to continuing to lease. So this would present them with an opportunity to do just that, to own. And the 7,500 square feet is subdividable. And I will say that we've had some interest in the 5,000 square feet of space that's commercial on Acre Crossing. And I can't tell you who it is at this point, but we do have somebody who they're finalizing negotiations with on using 4,000 of the 5,000 square feet there. And we think that'll be a good tenant for the neighborhood, bring a good activity, and provide very positive services, so we're pretty excited about it.
All right. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very
And
much.
thank you for your past support and for your consideration of what we're trying to do in this next phase. Very much appreciated.
All right, that concludes our project presentations for this evening. The only other order of business we have is the election of officers, presumably for the upcoming year. I guess, do we have do we want to do that tonight, or do we want to do that when we have more membership, or does any
It's reasonable to save it for when we're,
little
maybe
better
2
chance?
meetings from now, when we're talking about
Okay,
spending some money?
sounds like a good plan. Guess, can we get a motion to, I guess, continue that to the January meeting?
I'll make that motion to continue to the next, the second meeting from now, January what?
But to the January meeting.
I've been told in conservation that we need to tell the exact date.
For this one, I think it's.
We can say the first meeting of 2024.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Any opposed? I think the motion passes. Thanks. Any other business or comments from any of the members? If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second?
I'll second.
All right. Anyone opposed to that? Hearing none, I think we're done. Thanks very much, everybody.
Have a good night.